I sent out another reminder this morning at 11 because it looks like a couple people may have registered after I sent out the link yesterday. So hopefully we'll get a few more people today because yesterday was at 49 and today I looked, it was at 51. So some people snuck in,
That's all right. More the
which is
merrier.
great. Yeah.
I
See people
appreciate you
still
sending that
coming
out.
in. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be here till about noon and then I gotta hop off,
Okay. Sounds good.
but I didn't want to miss Holly's presentation.
Thanks, Travis.
Well, how about we give it like one more minute and then we'll get started. All right. For the sake of time, just to make sure that we have enough time for the presentation and conversation, we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's Wisconsin Career Development Association Lunch and Learn. I'm Alicia Aker, our current WCDA president. Thank you to Travis Ramage for putting this Lunch and Learn together. Before we dive in today's professional development topic, I want to let everyone know that elections are currently open for the WCDA board. We have several open seats on the board and would love for you to consider joining us. Being a board member is a fairly low commitment, maybe an average of 1 hour a month. So I will place a link in the chat here shortly of where you can go find more information and access the application for the WCDA board. The deadline to apply is this Friday, April 24th. But feel free to reach out to me personally if you have any questions or want more information about joining the board. I'll put my contact information in the chat as well. So now for today's Lunch and Learn, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers from UW-Madison School of Education Career Center and Beta Technologies to talk about one-way video interviews and how we can help our clients navigate that. So I'm turning it over to you, Holly. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alicia. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. Today's going to be about mastering one-way interviews. So what that means is interviews that are pre-recorded where there is not another person on that other side, which has become increasingly popular, but has existed for quite a while. So if you want to, you can introduce yourself in the chat, just looking for name, organization, and who you serve, and what are you hoping to get out of today. What I'm seeing so far is we've got a lot of folks who work in college career services. We've got folks who work on employer relations side or in student career centers. So I just wanted to point out that it is tips and insights for clients. My clients are students, so I often might say students, but if your clientele is for folks who are maybe adults, we are talking about them as well. So anybody who is entering in these types of one-way interviews. So really quickly, I will introduce myself. So I work at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I'm in the School of Education Career Center. We're a pretty decentralized unit, so this is specifically for the School of Education. And I work on the employer relations team, but I also am a former career readiness coordinator. So I was both on the student-facing side as well. And a little bit of my backstory is we used to work in Vermont with engineers, and it was Beta Technologies that a student came to me and was like, "Hey, I have this pre-recorded one-way interview and I don't know how to do it. Can I have some advice?" And I was like, I myself have never heard of it. So that was actually my first introduction. And I reached out to the HR team and was like, hey, could you tell me a little bit about these? And so I thought for this webinar, who better to bring in than the first employer who kind of helped introduce and use this in my experience. So I'll kind of turn it over to Beta Technologies for them to introduce themselves.
That's awesome. I did not know we were such trailblazers on that front. Quick shout out to my neighbor Jen O'Neill over at UVM. I see you out there. Um, we so my name is Matt Riley. I head up our people team here at Beta. We've got about 90 interns that are going to be landing on us over the next month. Really excited to ramp up that program and get it going. And we do rely on one-way interviewing for that as a way ultimately for a candidate to showcase themselves. We use some prompts. It can be really nerve-wracking. I've definitely gotten that feedback, but interviewing in general is nerve-wracking. So we want to make it as humane as we possibly can. I also want to introduce, I'm here with Harper Oliver, and Harper has been interviewing interns at Beta even before I got here 3 years ago, and also is responsible for onboarding all of these folks as they get to Beta. So has got lots of experience watching. How many videos do you think you've watched?
Over 3,000, definitely.
Over 3,000 videos.
Yeah.
So we use them heavily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So just to kind of go over what we're going to do today for the framework of this session is we're going to really quickly just explore the platform. So who are the companies that make these one-way interview platforms and just like what I've learned from them. Then we're going to allow Beta to kind of share some employer insights. So they're going to share why they use it, how they evaluate it, and what tips they have for candidates. And then from coaching side, I'm going to share what are some practical things that I would suggest to clients based on the learnings from the platforms, the employers, and then as well as I talked to a few other companies, including Marriott and Deloitte, and I heard from them what are they things they look for. So I'll share those insights. And then I'll leave some time for Q&A at the end because I want time for you to be able to ask questions. So to jump right into it, one of the first things I did when I learned that this was a session I was going to be running is I reached out to the top companies that host one-way interviews. So these are the platforms that employers might be using. So for example, it's VidCruiter, HireVue, SparkHire, and Willow are some of the top ones. A few of these are US based. I believe HireVue and SparkHire are US based, and then VidCruiter is based in Canada, but 50% of their clients are in the US. And then Willow is a Scottish based organization. So that was fun trying to find a time where we could meet, but they're actually opening a location in Boston soon because they have such a big US based application. So some things that they wanted to share with me when thinking about what do candidates need, they shared that their framework can be modified fully. So they are selling this platform to employers to use, but employers can fully adapt it based on their needs. So employers can make their own questions. They can determine the number of questions they're asking. Typically, I've heard it's around 3 to 5 questions. The number of retakes. So when a student jumps into the platform and it's a one-way interview, they can choose to potentially retake it. Some organizations say, nope, we don't want to allow students to retake it because we want it to be as natural or as close to a phone screen as we possibly can. So they can determine that. I think it's pretty common. I've seen people allow up to 3 retakes. And then time limits. So again, an employer can decide to set a time limit and just determine how long that person can talk. So it could be anywhere from 60 seconds to 3 minutes, 5 minutes, all of that is fully customizable. The other thing to note is that a lot of people wanted to share with me that this is not replacing their traditional interview. It's to help with the bottleneck. So a lot of people assume that, oh, I'm never going to get to talk to a person. That's not true. This is kind of helping when there's so many applicants to kind of narrow it down to help with maybe that second round. This is typically kind of replacing maybe a phone screen. But again, I'll let Beta kind of share that. Almost all of these companies wanted me to share that they're human by design. So what that means is they were really thoughtful and intentional about how they tried to design this, including having employers even pre-record themselves. So it's a person asking you the question and not an automated system. Evaluation was another big thing these companies wanted me to highlight. I will say, for all of these, they said that a recruiter and HR hiring manager has to watch and assess these videos. None of these systems are assessing it. And so I think a lot of students will be like, oh, same with resumes. They're like, oh, it's just an AI system that's going to review my resume. And I'm like, most people I talk to, it's still a person. And the same thing, even though this might feel transactional, it's a one-way interview, you think a person's not going to be seeing it, but there is a person on the other side reviewing it. What I will say is I talked to Marriott, and he was like, I watch them at 2 times speed because I have so many to watch, but it's still a person on the other side watching it. And then finally, VidCruiter was the only one that shared that they use AI scoring. So AI might like listen and score it for the recruiter HR. But what I've heard is employers can turn it off. And regardless, they still have to review the candidate. And I heard from Deloitte that they have turned on some of these features and have had bad experiences with them. So they've chosen to turn it off. So far, like it is still a person reviewing these. I wanted to just quickly show you, in case some of you maybe haven't seen what it looks like, just really quickly. Can everyone see my screen? A thumbs up, Matt. Perfect. And then can I get another thumbs up, Matt, if you can hear it when I play it?
And that'll take you right back here where you
I
can
hear
then
it.
click the Get Started button. There are a few different response types within the Willow platform, the most popular of which is the video question. So you'll see, again, similar to the practice zone, the question to the left-hand side, and then yourself to the right. You can then click Record Now. You'll see the countdown, and then you can start recording your answer. Make sure you take the time to read the question before you get started, just so you can take in everything that they're looking for. Once you've finished answering your question, you can click Stop Record, and then you have the opportunity to watch back your answer once it's finished processing. Make sure when the video is processing not to refresh your browser or to close the page, as your video just won't upload correctly and your employer won't be able to see your lovely answer. Once you've confirmed you're happy, you can then click Save and Continue. Or if your interview allows retake opportunities, you can re-record if you're not quite happy with the way you answered your question. Once you're ready, click Save and Continue. You can then move on to the next question. This example is of an audio-only question within the Willow platform. So similar to the one before, you can see the question on the left-hand side and then the audio waveform on the right-hand side. So with this method, your employer won't be able to see you, they'll just be able to hear you. So make sure that your microphone is crisp and clear in that practice zone before you get started. You'll also see on this question, there is something called thinking time in the top bar and a limit on the number of retakes. The thinking time is the total amount of time that the employer suggests that you spend on this question. So this includes while you're looking at the question and thinking about your answer, and it also includes while you're recording it. So make sure you look at the thinking time and take that into consideration before you start recording. Then just below, you'll see that this question has a limit on the number of retakes available. Some questions might have them, some questions might not. So make sure you know before you start recording. Again, it's really key that you use that practice zone before you get started because you don't want to get to this point and realize that your microphone isn't working. So once you're ready, click Record Now. You'll see the countdown timer, and then you can start recording your answer. Once you're happy with your answer, you can click Stop Record, and again, wait for it to process and upload. Once you're happy with this answer, you can move on to the next question. This is an example of a text-based question. So in this example, the question is at the top and your text box is at the bottom. So you can then provide your answer to the employer here. And you can also include hyperlinks if they're asking you to share your portfolio or another URL. Once you're happy with your answer, again, save and continue. Here you have an example of a multiple choice question. So the employer has given you a question and they've got a couple of options they want you to pick from, and you just pick the one that's right for you for this question and save and continue. Now, this last question type is called file upload. So this allows you to give the employer back a file. Now you can see here they've provided a hyperlink, so you would click onto here, answer the question, download the file, whatever they're requesting from you, and then upload it back here into the Willow platform.
Okay, I just wanted to share that with you all so you can see, like, that is an example of Willows, but there's so many different modalities that employers can use this. And again, typically the one-way interview has just been a video, but they're starting to kind of expand it. And what I have heard from employers, and I was going to talk about this later, but I think it comes up now, is why are they doing this? This seems like maybe a lot of work. I've heard from so many employers that due to AI and a couple other things going on is that a lot of resumes and cover letters are looking really the same. So they don't know who to bring on for an in-person interview. The other thing I've heard is like people are mass applying to jobs, like 100 jobs. They're using all the different tools and techniques to quickly apply. And so by asking someone to do a one-way interview, something like this, which takes a little bit more effort, if people aren't doing it, they're going to assume they're not actually that interested in the job and just did a quick apply thing. So it's essentially to kind of help with, again, that bottleneck. But without further ado, I am going to pass this over to actually, I'm going to bring up really quickly some concerns that Matt already kind of shared, was like maybe that people are uncomfortable or like worried to use these. I think Reddit is a place that I honestly go to see what people are saying about it. And a lot of, students or just folks shared that they don't like it because it doesn't give them a chance to interview them. They're worried about company culture. They're worried about maybe being screened out due to race, gender, ability status. And then someone again saying it was awkward and uncomfortable. And what I found interesting too is like one of the top things on LinkedIn was actually from a career coach saying 6 reasons not to sign up for a one-way interview. So there is obviously a lot of negative press around one-way interviews. But something that I think that is important to share with a student if they're debating whether or not to do a one-way interview is the reasons of why maybe companies are doing it. So a lot of them have shared there's flexibility, right? So these can be done at any time of the day, right? So you don't need to, and that's kind of another point is scheduling. You don't need to go back and forth and try to maybe move when your class time is. You don't need to take time off of work if you have a full-time job. There's a lot more flexibility. It's also more accessible and mobile friendly to be able to do one of these one-way interviews. We work with Urban League, which is a local organizations, and they say a lot of their candidates don't have access to these like computer platforms. So being able to have a phone to be able to record it's great. Time commitment. And that's maybe more on the employer side, again, like being able to kind of quickly go through candidates, but it still is time consuming for them as well. But with the flexibility and the scheduling, that could be helpful. They're also typically shorter than a phone screener. So again, maybe the time commitment on the student or client's end is better. Standardization of questions is one of the important things. It's gonna like make it so that everyone has the same experience. And then also a lot of companies shared, like if we were just going off of resume and cover letter, we maybe couldn't have offered an in-person interview to everybody, but we can offer a lot of students this option. So sometimes the feedback is like, well, you might not have gotten an interview had you not done the one-way interview. And then finally, some conversation that my supervisor and I had, she works in HR, is if if an employer is going to be biased, I hate to say it, but they're going to be biased no matter what. They're going to be biased to the resumes, cover letters, the in-person interview, the phone screen. Bias exists in all those places. I don't believe the one-way interview is increasing bias. It's more so what is the company doing? And so HireVue shares that they share structured questions, they share clear scoring guides and regulations. So again, if an employer is using like skills data and they have a scorecard, hopefully again, that should not be reducing bias, or that should be reducing bias. Okay, now that I've kind of shared a little bit of that, I'm going to turn it over to Beta Technologies to share more about why they use it, how do they evaluate students and clients, and then maybe what are some strengths and what are some pitfalls.
Great, happy to do it. So Beta Technologies, we're an electric airplane manufacturer based out of Burlington, Vermont. And we have taken a path in how we've developed and grown our organization that has been true to how we want to build an organization. A big part of that has been to work with interns, so students, folks that are still in that learning mode where they're willing to jump in and fix problems. And we have, in many respects, relied on the ideas that come from those folks, not just to spark ideas within our own team, which when we bring in that new energy every year, we do. It brings in this whole level of energy that really can be propelling. We have asked interns and really put them in a position to say, we don't want you to come here and file paper and do all the kind of the stuff that might be a cliche. We want you to engineer. We want you to get into the actual build of the aircraft. We want to hear your ideas. And we've had engineers make significant modifications and changes to our design, which is really, I think, foundational to how we present ourselves and how we think about this summer internship program. So again, I keep talking about the internship program because that's really where we focus on the one-way interview. And we don't really use it as an interview. So I would offer that we use it as a way for the individual to showcase themselves. And Harper reminded me, we ask one question, which is,
Why beta?
Why beta? And it does the, and I would agree with your HR supervisor there, Holly. I actually think that by having this showcase, it gives us more of an insight into who this individual is and what gets them excited. On our website, I forget specifically what it says, but there's actually a picture of a pirate. So when it says like who is beta, like we've got people who break stuff. We got people who fix things and engineer things. We have pilots. For some reason, we have pirates. What we're really conveying there is that there's no one group of skills or one particular background that is going to allow someone to make a major contribution here. We've got folks, we have chefs, we have engineers, we have artists, we have artisans. We've got people from just about every background. And when we look at a resume and we're thinking about, geez, I need to have this particular skill set for this summer, when we actually get to hear from this individual, there are going to be things that jump out in that showcase that we would not have seen on their resume, read in their cover letter. We're looking for stuff that's a little weird. We're looking for stuff that's a little more interesting or a little bit more unique. And that comes across in this interview platform a little bit better, or on this video platform a little bit better than it would in just looking at a resume or reading an application.
Yeah.
You've looked at a lot of these. What are the things that jump out at you?
Yeah, I think we're growing really fast. And so I think one of the main reasons that we use them is for scalability of interviewing. So like Matt was saying, they're really a showcase of the person. I think our limit is 2 minutes. So it's hard to get your whole personality across it then. But I think one of the first things that I look for is kind of their background. I'm a little bit nosy, but like I can tell when your bed is not made in your dorm room and your laundry is everywhere. And not that that makes you a bad person, but it's kind of just like the preparation that you put into it, the care, the effort. You can tell when somebody's done research on the role, when they've done research on the company, versus when not. You can tell when they've practiced out loud what they really want to get across versus just in their head. They're looking off to the side, seeing if they're reading off of chat, which I've definitely experienced a lot of that. But yeah, just kind of like the overall organization effort that you're putting into it.
It's definitely a showcase, and all those elements are gonna pop out. I get the fact, and I forget what all the prompts were, Holly, but the one that, just to speak to, is I get the intimidation factor. I don't think I like doing that, but to figure out that it is part of an ongoing dialogue, and we do have a human being committed to looking at every single one of our applications, to getting their eyeballs on the application, to look at the cover letter. Those things all do matter, and if we do have an individual that has put a bunch of time and thought into this video opportunity, this video introduction, it speaks volumes about how they're going to approach the summer. And so I think there's a way that, I'm being asked to do this video. Let me just get it over with. They really are important. They do matter. And it is a quick way for us to get a sense of who that person is.
Definitely. And I know that a lot of our hiring leads, specifically with interns, when we do schedule their first interview with them, they'll go back, they'll look at their cover letter, the resume, and oftentimes they will also watch that video. I mean, it's only 2 minutes of their time when they're just watching it for a couple candidates.
Also would offer they're super fun to watch at the end of the summer after the person
Yes, they are.
they come out of their shell and emerged from the internship experience.
Yeah.
What did I miss on there, Holly?
Yeah, that's amazing. Sorry. I stopped sharing my screen because I wanted for everyone to be able to see you all.
Oh,
so
I know.
you,
We're in this big room.
yeah, so it sounds like you use it primarily because you have a really high load of applicants and because
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
able to help you see more personality than resumes and cover letters. Is that right?
Yeah, it's for sure true. We want to have people that we're going to be excited to work with. And we also, people really do shine in these videos to the point where you're like, this, I don't know if this skill set matches exactly what we were looking for, but based on the fact that this person's so engaging and so interested in us, we'd love to chat with them. But yeah, with what do we have this year? 2,000
Yeah, close.
applications?
Close to.
2,000 applications.
And we're taking 90 interns, so
It's a small number.
small pool out of that.
So we do really want to be able to get a chance to engage with everybody, and this is a hopeful way to do that.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And when you share, you kind of shared a little bit how you evaluate students. Is there like a scorecard that you use? Is there like a more formal evaluation for these types of one-way videos? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a feedback form. So usually it's whoever's watching the one-way video. We can score them on a couple of things. One main one that we use is, do we think this person will make beta better? We can go 1 through 4, 4 being the best, and then you also have a spot to leave some feedback. I think for our other interviews, we use a couple more questions, but that's mainly the one we use for interns.
It really is. Did this person jump out at you? Do they stand out? And should we pursue them further? So just as Harper was saying, we're going to call that, 2,000 down to a few hundred. And then we really get a chance to go deeper on each one of them.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then is there anything that you have seen that students really do well in, or like clients, candidates, really anybody, what are like the strengths? Like, oh, we noticed this is really great. This is something that like really stood out to us. And then what are some things that you're like, this is like an automatic no. So it does sound like maybe the background matters, right? Where they rush, did they seem to put care in it? Excitement shines to all. But yeah, is there any like strengths or pitfalls you're seeing people do in these one-way interviews?
Gosh, I watched it. I don't watch nearly as many as Harper has. She's seen a lot more, but I saw maybe 25 of them. And it was remarkable to me how many people started off with what looked like very little preparation, that they were just kind of talking into their phone. And it was a little, it was so casual, or maybe even the person was walking and they were moving, that you just got this sense right away of, are they really, are they putting enough care into this? On the other end of the spectrum, they're the folks that are so paralyzed and nervous.
A lot of them wear suits when they do it.
It's actually very endearing. And then they'll read you their resume. Why beta? Well, let me tell you all the reasons why, you should be picking me. And the ones that I think really stand out are those individuals that have a reason why this would be a great experience and what they're going to deliver to the business. We don't expect that somebody's going to come here and revolutionize beta during a 3-month summer program. But are they going to contribute to the culture? Are they going to contribute to the engineering? Are they going to contribute to our build? Are they going to make us better as a team? Are we going to miss them when they're gone? And that's true. We have a lot of interns. We miss a lot of our interns, and we try to get them back here. And we have great success in doing that. And so we're thinking about all of those things as we are going through that assessment. And a bunch of that will pop through in these videos. You get these folks that just are incredibly good at presenting, which is also part of this program. At the end of the summer, we have 2 to 3 days worth of back-to-back presentations, and they are absolutely remarkable to see. And to see some of those same folks with the same poise that they had in those interview videos, those introduction videos, all the way through to the end, is pretty remarkable. But the things that definitely jump out are when you've got somebody who's got a personality. And the quirkier, the better. That's great. Bring it. But it definitely is helpful when that person is really nerdy about this one particular thing and just wants to know more about that. We've had people say, I really want to meet Kyle Clark. I saw these YouTube videos. I saw his early YouTube video of when he flew, the first aircraft, Ava, and I would really just love to talk to him about this idea that I had. And then they go into this idea, and you're like, okay, great, like that. Yes, we would like to talk to you further. So those things pop out.
Yeah, I think when I watch them, it's less about being perfect and just really if that person's like clear and thoughtful and intentional with their answers. And my favorite ones, just because our one-way interviews are only one question, like Matt said earlier, it's why beta. So I really like when people turn a story of something that they've experienced in their life, whether it's a success or a challenge or a teamwork situation, and they really fold that into like how they would make beta a better place and what's really drawing them to work here. But yeah, I would say like sitting down in a nice place, not being too quick with your answers, but not too slow. Like you're just talking to a camera.
We are asking a lot. Holy smokes. I love the story. The stories are the ones that resonate. And
Although
tell us.
when I'm thinking about interviews that I've watched now, it's easier for me to remember a lot of the ones that was a really quick no to me. One time we had a kid that over and over kept saying that all he does in the shower is think about beta. I thought that was pretty weird.
Not the best presentation.
Ramble.
Not the best presentation.
I love that. One of my students I know did a one-way interview, and I found out that he had a bong in the background. Just being so honest, the company reached out to me. It was like, we just want you to know one of your students did this, and I was like, thank you for telling me. I will work on
It really takes
them
5
knowing
seconds. Yeah.
what's in their room. So all of those things are really important.
I expect there's a bong in the room somewhere. Just don't put it on camera. That's
Don't have it in your screen.
That's right.
What I'm gonna do is there's a couple of questions. I'm just gonna go over kind of quickly, like just some other points about prep, and then I will go back to your questions. So don't worry, I see you all writing things in the chat. I'm gonna go back to that. Thank you for sharing. Can everyone see my employer perspective screen again?
Yes.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So, kind of based on what you all said is a lot of what I heard from both my interviews with the platforms and my interviews with different companies. So again, I talked to Deloitte, Marriott, and then Spark Hire. She was a recruiter who did one-way interviews before she got hired. So that's kind of where some of these tips came from, things that you can share with your students or your clients who are about to go into a one-way interview. And Beta, please feel free to interject at any point. So one thing I would recommend is that they actually explore the one-way platform. A lot of these platforms have incredible tools, including like a walkthrough like Willow just did, so you can see it before you go in. They have so many good resources. They have technical support. And then also you can request accommodations through these. So I did make this, and I'll share this with you all after. But I have this like the platform resource guide. I went through the top one, Spark Hire, View, VidCruiter, Willow, Jobma, and just like linked for you the candidate bootcamp. So again, if you have a student who's about to go into one of those interviews, check out the platform. They are really great at supporting their candidates. And then another thing, kind of as people shared, is practice just like you would with any other interview. I think that maybe can be something that's comforting for a student, is knowing you're going to do all the same types of things. You're going to research the company. You're going to practice commonly asked questions, right? Like, tell me about yourself, or why this company or why this job is typically going to be asked in an interview. So practice those. Think about kind of what you want to say. Check out Glassdoor. A lot of folks on Glassdoor will kind of share maybe what their one-way interview would look like, as well as review your resume and then come up with examples and stories. So again, this is prep pretty much that I would share for any interview. And again, I think it can help students feel like, oh, okay, like I'm going to practice like I would for a traditional interview as well. Another thing is setting up for the interview. So again, maybe this is a little more important than a different type of interview, but your Wi-Fi connection, having a quiet location, having a neutral or blurred background. That was something Deloitte really talked about, was like, honestly, if you could just blur your background, I'm not distracted, I'm not looking, I'm not, making any judgments, as well as lighting. So what Spark Hire kind of shared was that you don't need extra equipment. And that's kind of maybe the demonstrating skills and experience, right? Like you don't need to have this like setup like you would for TikTok. You don't need to have a ring light and all that
Sweetie,
stuff.
love you.
But
Carol,
you
love you.
also, sorry, I think someone's unmuted. But then, so you don't necessarily need that, but also you do want to be professional. You don't want to be in the dark. Deloitte shared that like when people have ceiling fans, he was like, honestly, it creates like a strobe light and effect. And he's like, I'm trying my best to listen, but if I'm listening on 2x speed, like just trying to make sure that the lighting is even if you can. And then kind of they also shared similarly, like you don't want to be overly casual. This is not a TikTok or an Instagram reel. You want to show that you're prepared. But again, like you don't need to be overly prepared, like again, with the ring lights and all that kind of stuff. Like that's not what they're looking for. They're just trying to see preparedness, that you're demonstrating your skills and experiences. And then Deloitte also shared the same thing as like, you can tell when someone is reading an overly prepared answer that they typed everything out or they're using ChatGPT. What I've heard a lot of people talk about is like when you're reading, your cadence is different, right? So if I'm reading off of the thing, I'm not saying so like it's just different. And so they're looking for, again, maybe more natural authenticity. So it's okay to have notes. And I tell students this in interviews all the time, like even for this presentation, like I have notes on like something I want to remember to say, but I'm not going to be reading off of something so I can come off more authentic. Also, last thing that one of the employers shared with me is that they were like, if you wear glasses, we can see what you're looking at. So I can tell if you're on ChatGPT. Anything you would add, Beta, for like helping clients before the interview? Anything, any recommendations that students or clients can do before they go into this?
I think all this is really good. You do get two shots at it. We're not used to being recorded necessarily. I don't know. I'm old. I'm not used to being recorded. But I do think one of the pieces of advice I heard recently, which I think is so unfair, is just be yourself. Well, I don't know. I do think all of these are really helpful ways to prepare. We want you to be the best version of yourself for this particular snapshot in time. And we get the fact that you're not going to be perfect. Harper's exactly right. We're not looking for somebody to come across as a newscaster or a professional influencer. We just want you to be able to highlight and showcase what makes you tick. And why should we have an interview with you is the way that we think about that next step. This all seems really valuable.
Awesome. Thank you. I saw a picture of the dog. I love that. Also, so during the interview, this is again just kind of like reiterating more on what Beta said and what I've heard from other employers. So some other tips is, again, this is in some places, this is kind of what Deloitte shared, is that it's replacing their cover letters. Particularly, they shared that whenever they have a really so Deloitte is not using this for all of their positions. They're only using this for positions that are really niche, maybe harder to fill entry-level positions. And so they're trying to, again, look for excitement, passion, interest in the company. Like are you actually naming the company, naming the position, what stood out to you, and what skills and experiences you have, just like any other kind of interview. So that's some things that they're kind of looking for. I did want to share, this was just an interesting tidbit that I learned from them. And I don't want to, this kind of goes all the way back to my other slide about like, don't, with what people are saying, sorry, I clicked too far, about not taking one-way interviews. What is interesting is Deloitte is seeing a trend on who will and who won't take one-way interviews. So law students and MBA students are most likely to not take a one-way interview. So Deloitte stopped doing one-way interviews for those candidates. So clients have power, but in your power, you may be potentially giving up an opportunity. So anyway, that was just like an interesting thing is like they have moved away from MBA or law school one-way interviews specifically just for them. Another thing to think about is pacing. So kind of as they shared, like you might have 2 minutes. What Deloitte shared was that you don't have to go all the way up to the timer. If we give you 3 minutes, if you shared what you wanted to say, you have nothing new to add. You don't have to fill it all the way up to the end. He's like, that's when I start to see people get flustered, share things maybe they didn't expect to share, right? Like if you feel like you gave a complete answer, of course, if it's 2 minutes and you only spoke for 30 seconds, maybe you want to share a little bit more. But again, he was sharing like, I don't need you to take up the whole time if you have a good answer. And of course, the STAR method and CAR method are great things to teach with students. And then Spark Hire also shared to try to do it in one sitting. So apparently Spark Hire has a feature where someone can like do the interview, and if the employer will allow them, they can take a break. And she's like, I just wouldn't suggest it because what we have found with candidates is they will do the interview and then like it'll be sunny out and then all of a sudden it's like dark out and they forgot what they said for their previous answer. So she's like, if you can just mimic it and try to do it all in one sitting, that's recommended. And then yeah. And then finally, thank you and follow up. So Spark Hire kind of shared like just like any other interview, you might want to follow up with a thank you if you can. Like if you have the contact, follow up and just say thank you so much for the opportunity to have done a one-way interview. And it's okay to say like, this really threw me off. This is what I wish I said, right? Like if something does happen, if someone does have a negative experience or again, like something happened, sharing that, or again, sharing the good or the bad, like it shows engagement and interest. And I mean, I know this is more coming from a technical interview, but I had a student who did the same thing. Like it was a recorded technical interview. She bombed it and she's like, I know I could have done better. And she reached out to the company, explained everything, and they gave her a second chance. So again, these are just some things during the interview that I heard from different companies. Beta, did you want to say anything?
You always can, I mean, we'll always take a thank you. We always like a follow-up. And all these things make perfect sense. Again, perfect is not the thing that we're looking for. I do like the insight of replacing cover letters. That is very often what we're looking for. It's really like we want to hear from you as a human in your own words. Why this would be a good opportunity for you.
Awesome.
Well, that makes sense.
Perfect. I will be sharing my slides. I will be sharing that resource that I showed you really quickly. But now we can move to just Q&A. I'll stop sharing my screen, and what I'll do is I'll start to read some of the questions that we maybe didn't answer during beta session. That's mainly when they were coming through. Someone shared that their student is interested in working at beta. Anyway, you can
Fantastic.
Check it. Someone shared, since many applicants can anticipate a version of the questions, what is your response to an applicant who has memorized their answer, assuming it accurately responds to the prompt?
It's okay. It probably comes across as a little bit more stilted, but yeah, I mean, as long as it's their answer, and they mean it, and they can present it in a compelling way, I think that sounds fine. However we prep, people go through lots of different ways of doing it, introverts, extroverts, etc. But Ultimately, we're looking for the most authentic application of that and or presentation of that.
Awesome.
Sure,
Thank
you
you.
see, memorized them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it probably comes across as a little bit more rigid or a
Mhm.
little more
One of their
stilted.
friends just did it and they know that what our questions are.
Oh yeah, sure. As long as they don't give the same answer.
Exactly.
That's a good point. Someone else asked if the candidate is given the opportunity to submit multiple takes, are you considering all the takes in your review or just the best take? From my understanding, if you do multiple takes, I believe it erases the take
Correct.
beforehand.
We
So
only get
We
one.
only get one.
they get one. So that's
Yeah.
like a good that I'm glad you brought that up. It is important to tell your to tell your clients, like, if you feel like an answer was good but not perfect, do you want to retake it? Do you want to risk the retake? Do you feel like you truly could do better, or are you happy with that take? So you kind of have to make some hard decisions in that moment. And how many takes do you allow? Two, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
we do too.
Okay.
Holly, I will say one thing that you pointed out. When you said that you don't have to use the full time, I would recommend telling your clients that you should end the video before you continue talking about something else, because I've seen that a lot. Or there's like swearing that happens because they can't stop it. It's entertaining for me, but it's not usually the best look.
Yeah, it's kind of the same with a technical interview, right? Or any interview. I tell students, like, if you're being recorded and you look frustrated, they're gonna
Yeah.
see that
Yeah.
you maybe are a person who's
Yeah.
easily frustrated. It's a good point. Someone says, does your company host high school student learners in your organization as youth apprentices or interns, or is it strictly college students? And if you do, how do high school students do compared to a college student applicant?
Yeah, it's funny. My daughter, I have three daughters. My youngest is 17, and she was explaining to me that one of her buddies is an intern at Beta. And I'm like half listening. I'm like, yeah, no, she's not, sweetheart. She's a high school kid. I don't think we have high school intern. She is a full-blown intern here at Beta with the A&P team building airplanes. She's a bona fide intern. We have a high school job shadow, which is primarily our conduit for high school students. We do have a few high school interns, but for the most part, it'll be, how many people do we bring in from
Typically 20.
about 20 people for the high school job shadow. And some of those folks go on to be interns with us in their college years, but largely our internship program properly is mostly college students.
Perfect. And do those high school interns have to do the one-way interviews too, or just for college?
They do,
They
yes.
do, yeah.
Okay. How do they do comparatively?
I would, it definitely depends on the person, but I think that the girls are a lot more confident, the high school girls. They're like, this is me and this is why you should let me into the high school job shadow program. And I've definitely seen, some people being a little bit more nervous than the average college student, but I mean, kids are on their phones and being recorded in Snapchats and TikToks and all the things all the time. So they're comfortable in front of the camera,
Mhm.
most of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting because I do feel like Deloitte shared sort of similar, like sometimes depending on what the level of the position is, whether or not they do pre-recorded interviews or the one-way interviews. It was interesting because it like, maybe higher level execs, they're not, but middle to entry level they are because there's more comfortability with technology or at least like being in a camera.
I also think one thing with college students that could typically make them a little bit more nervous is that they're closer to the real world time where they have to find a job and a career. And the high school job shadow program really just is that, a job shadow where they're exploring all different types of careers and still kind of figuring out what direction they want to go, even in terms of what they're going to study in college.
Mhm. Awesome. This is interesting, and I have actually, Mary Deloitte shared this story too. Are you all struggling or having issues with the person who did the one-way interview is not the person who actually is applying to the job? Right? So it's like The
Oh my
person who did
gosh.
the interview is not the actual person.
Oh, I don't know that we've sounded like an imposter. You hire somebody to do your video for you or put them up to
Friend
it.
does it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we've.
I
come up
think
with that.
we would probably be able to tell pretty quickly because then we do a follow-up interview, a video interview with the hiring lead. So I don't know if we've run into that. I don't, not that I've noticed.
Yeah, right. If we have run into it, we don't know.
They got
about
away with it.
They did it. Yeah.
Yeah. Deloitte shared that they were running into that. And so honestly, I think he was just sharing that that's like one of the reasons why they do the pre-recorded, and then similar to you all do an in-person interview because they're like, we have to make sure it's the same person.
Yeah.
Someone shared, are there controls for avoiding implicit bias? Again, I think kind of sharing like higher views take, and a lot of the other take is that the employer should be using a clear scorecard when they're and like rating everyone on the same criteria. But I don't know if you all have a reaction to, are there any controls on avoiding implicit bias in your processes?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the answer that you had given earlier, Holly, that I think that you've got to have good controls and processes in place for interviewing in general, and the way that you think about establishing your candidate pool and understanding what the criteria for the role are and what are the things that you're looking for, and that this does not circumvent that. This doesn't become something that you are using as a way to get around it. You build it into the system, you stick to the system, you train people on the interviewing techniques, you train them for what they should be looking for, what they should not be looking for. And I think that you hold true to your overall process.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so let me just read. People adapt. Yeah, so someone said, so you don't get to choose afterwards, it's just recording over the previous take. Yes. So if you choose to retake, it is recording over that. So you have to be sure that you want to re-record.
Yeah.
Somebody asked,
Get
Jane
your takes,
asked, Beta, do you offer housing for internships?
We do.
Wow.
We got great relationship with Champlain College here as one of our routes, but we'll have something like 40 to 50 rooms this year as part of the program. So yes, we do house lots of interns.
It's like a discounted rate, so I think it's $650 a month. They're here for 3 months.
Yeah.
We're not quite at the point where we can fully provide housing yet.
We do feed them and provide them with airplane lessons.
Yay! So cool. That's why I wanted to bring you all. You have a very impressive internship program.
Yeah.
Someone said, I'm curious how often students are coming across this type of interview. I have students who are worried about encountering them, but have yet to have it happen to the best of my knowledge. Are there industries where this is more common? What I can share based on my research is one, I think it's always existed in business and engineering. That's like from what I've noticed is like business. When I was sharing this out in the School of Education, somebody had worked for the School of Business, my director, and she was like, "We've been talking about these forever." She's like, "I've been talking about this pre-COVID," right? She was kind of like, "I'm very knowledgeable." But what I will say is that I personally feel like this is touching all industries. For example, I work with the Wanakee School District. They use this. K through 12 space, right? They're going to be teachers. They still use this. So I think preparing students to know, yes, there are a lot of companies that are large engineering, business side, Deloitte, is the example, the Marriott. But my K through 12 districts are starting to use this too. So I do think it is becoming increasingly more common, especially as resumes and cover letters start to blend or get difficult to know who kind of to bring on for an interview.
I've been the first exposure I got was in 2016 to this style of interview, and it was for an internship program for a life insurance company based out of Vermont. And then I've been in healthcare for 7 or so years since then. And we used extensive interviewing for even clinicians. So when I was in mental health space, we would use this for clinicians as a first round interview. So it's pretty prevalent. And I think likely getting more prevalent as we try to really connect with people quickly.
Yeah. Perfect. Someone asked, where do they sign up for beta? They love it.
Oh, sure. So it's www.beta.team.
Someone said, what percentage of interns that you hire are studying engineering? And if so, what fields of engineering do you hire for? Yeah.
About half of our interns will be engineers. Lots of them are mechanical. We do have some electrical engineers. We have some systems engineers. We do have lots of aeronautical engineers that join us. We also have finance folks and supply chain folks and technicians, folks that are studying the trades. So it's a wide variety of folks that make up the other half of it.
Awesome. Thank you. We have someone who shared, I've yet to hear a good experience with one-way interviews. This is a completely different way to interview that seems to exacerbate nerves and anxiety. Is this considered before using the technology? Is there any advanced information to interviewees to help with this? For instance, hearing your perspectives are really helpful, but I wonder if applicants know what you have shared with us.
Yeah, it's a good question. How do they know the environment into which they're going to be dropping this interview? Into what space they are. We do have some prompts up front. We let them know as part of the application process that we're going to be asking them to do this video. And ultimately that we try to keep it as simple as we possibly can. It's a good question from the perspective that what I would want the candidate to know, or the potential candidate to know, is that we are not going to be catty about this video. It's not going to get shared. We're going to hold it in confidence. It's important to us for the reasons that we've talked about. And likely that's a good question, enough to prompt me to say that I think we can probably prep our folks with a little bit more information.
Yeah. And I do think that's even like, I don't know how, but good feedback I can give to Spark Hire, well, a lot of those other places. But I do think what those companies are trying to do, like the platforms they're hosted on, is create so many resources and so much to kind of help alleviate that. So I do think the companies are trying to be really transparent with students and allow them to even test out the interview process beforehand. But I agree. I mean, I think a lot of the conversation, that's why I included that slide, is pretty negative about it. One thing that Deloitte wanted me to share specifically was that like this isn't meant to be like the ground hard-hitting questions. This is again like the cover letter. We just want to hear excitement, see it. We're not going to be asking any questions that we would in a traditional interview. This is not replacing an interview. We just want to know your why. Why you, why this company, why this position? Like we just want to see that come through. So again, if that can like maybe help alleviate it when you're talking to students or clients, but I do think like I do think it is really nerve-wracking. And I remember even as a career coach, the first time I heard a student say they were doing it with beta, I was like, oh, okay, let me figure out like what this looks like and why it's used. I think our last question, we have 1 minute left, is someone said, thanks so much, Beta. Are you using this type of interviews for tech roles like avionics? Are you using it beyond internships too?
What a specific question. No, we really don't. I think there are applications of it that go deeper and further. We are really looking at it to make as efficient work as we can of getting through our interns. Understanding that I do think as we continue to grow and develop this, yeah, there's probably deeper applications for other roles, even beyond avionics.
Awesome. Well, I think we're at our time. Thank you all so much for being here. Round of applause, Beta. Thank you so much
Thanks for having us. It was awesome
here.
to chat with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it looks like there's an evaluation. I'll kind of let you all
Yeah.
take back over.
Yeah, thank you so much for this great conversation this last hour. We learned a lot, and I know that Holly, you said you'd be sending over the slides. So if you want to send them to me, I can get them out to everyone. And we're going to try to share out the recording as well. Sometimes we have issues with Teams and recordings outside of our organization. So we'll do our best to try and get that out to everyone. Thank you again for attending. I did put a session evaluation in the chat. Feel free to take that so you can get a certificate for attending for the last hour. So thank you again and have a great afternoon.
Thanks all.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Send us your students.
Bye, thank
Bye.
you.